Hey there, guys. I'd like to talk to you about today is testing neutral safety switches. What we're going to do is we've got our equipment set up here, the power supply with our resistor load. Put a test light on it so it's easy for you guys to see. This is for a 64 Turbo 400 car. Make sure that the contacts work good and that the vacuum valve works good. Now, some of the early cars, they don't have the vacuum valve. Some of the later cars, the valve is much more complicated than this one. And basically what this does is when you put the car into gear, it releases the parking brake. So you don't have to reach down and pull a handle like most cars have. But we're going to go ahead and give this one a quick check out. And just something to keep in mind is if you're dealing with a car that has a hydromatic, remember where your reverse is and neutral is compared to park. This is a turbo hydromatic switch, so we have the standard modern shift pattern. But if your car has the older shift pattern where reverse is all the way down, just keep that in mind when you're testing. I know that the first one of those that was ever handed to me, it didn't occur to me that that the switch came out of a car with the hydromatic. I'm trying to figure out, why do the backup light switches come on all the way down? So join me here on the bench and I'll show you how to test these. So what we have here on the bench is the switch that we're going to be testing and some of the tools that we'll be using. I have a power supply, which can be substituted with a battery. This is my resistor load bank, which you've seen in other videos, with a test light set up there just for visual indication. You'll also see the current draw here on the meter when we put the resistors onto the circuit. Vacuum gauge, and we have a little vacuum pump here. So the first thing we'll do is I'll just show you what happens when we connect these two together. We get a light, and with the resistor and the light, it draws about 7 amps at 12.4 volts. So this is our switch, and the first thing we're going to do is check the neutral safety part of the circuit, which should be, these two contacts should be closed when the switch is in the park or the neutral position. That's to allow the cranking of the engine. So we'll put the switches, put the test leads on. We push this all the way, almost all the way over. If you go too far, sometimes you won't have contact, but it would not normally go that far. The service manual will give you the instructions on how to line up everything, line up the hole in the housing with the hole in the wiper for installing this. Your service manual will show you how to install it, but the service manual doesn't tell you how to test it. So when we're in the park position, we have current flow. You see our lights on. We have 7 amps on our meter. We move to the reverse position. And now we're moving into neutral, which is kind of hard to get it to line up on. So there we are in neutral, and those would be drive, second, and low. So this switch is for the starting circuit is working properly. So we turn it to park, and we will move to these contacts, which are for the backup lights. So we're in park, and we come into reverse. You can feel right there, it's hard to get in that position because of the valve here, which we'll be testing next. So now we're in neutral, drive, second, and low. So this switch electrically tests out just fine. So the next thing we're going to do is test the switch out vacuum-wise. So we have our vacuum gauge here, and that is going to simulate the canister on the parking brake assembly. We plug that onto this position. Then we have our little vacuum pump here, which would be ultimately connected to the manifold. So we have a source of vacuum, and then we have, this would be the canister on the parking brake assembly. So we want to see vacuum applied whenever the gear shift would be in a forward or reverse gear. So basically we should see no vacuum indicated in park or neutral, which would allow the parking brake to remain applied at that point. But as soon as you go into a gear to cause the car to move, vacuum is applied and the parking brake is released. So we'll start we'll leave that over in the park position. And you can see here we have no vacuum on the gauge. There we've entered reverse and we have vacuum. Now we're in the neutral position. Now we're in drive and second and first. So this switch tests out properly for vacuum. The other thing we notice is when it's in park that we can hear our pump is kind of struggling compared to there. So we know that we don't have a leaking vacuum from the vacuum source side of the valve. So this switch is completely operational and ready to be installed into a car.
Caddy Daddy presents It's All About Giving Back. Please enjoy the video of the Boys and Girls Clubs of St. Helena and Calistoga. You can donate by clicking the link in the video description.